And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Dyke with the Tualatin Valley Water District, and I'm the Communications Director here. I wanted to start by welcoming everyone to today's edition of Talking Water, and thank everyone for spending their lunch time or lunch break with us today. We have a presentation on our 2024 water rates, and we'll be guiding it through today, but I want to start off with a couple of reminders about these virtual events. These sessions are recorded. Please make sure your microphone is muted. I'll be doing an occasional check through, and if anyone's unmuted and maybe making a little bit of noise, I might mute you just to keep the audio quality preserved for everyone in attendance. There will be a moderated Q&A after the presentation, and feel free to type in your questions at any time. So in the leftmost circle there, you'll see there's a raise hand feature to use during the Q&A afterwards. In the right circle, there is a Q&A feature that you can type in those questions at any point in the conversation or the presentation. That way you don't forget them. We'll get to these as close to the order as received as possible, but we will make sure that all questions and comments are given the appropriate amount of time and consideration to make sure everything's answered for our audience today. If you do have any accessibility needs at the, you can see the pop out in the image of the slide there, but in the bottom of the screen, there's a 3-dot ellipsis. You can click on that, and that can help magnify the slides, translate the slides, or change their appearance. That is for you as the user only. It doesn't change the appearance for everyone, but it does, or it can help make your viewing experience of today's presentation a little bit better. And as a reminder, we operate in an inclusive and discrimination-free manner to serve all of our customers, and staff may exclude participants who disrupt any of the event today. Today's presenters will be our CEO, Paul Matthews, our Willamette Water Supply Program Director, Dave Kraska, and our Chief Financial Officer, Justin Carlton. Without any further delay, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Paul Matthews.
Well, good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking you for attending this session. We know that the continued investment we're making in the Willamette Water Supply Project, which Dave Kraska will talk about in a moment, does affect all of our customers and affects all of us very intimately. So we appreciate you joining our meeting today to learn more about the project. As I mentioned, we are in the middle of a major generational investment in the Willamette River water supply system. We are constructing new water pipelines that will connect us to a new source of water in the Mid-Willamette, bringing it into the Tualatin Valley. And that will, of course, drive our rates, and that's what we're here to talk about. I'm sorry, I need to advance the slide. Apologize for that. This is the project that I was referring to. Justin, can somebody please advance the slide? I'm having problems doing that.
I can handle advancing it.
Okay, thank you. Before we go too far, I do want to, I think we went one too many here. All right, so these are what's driving the rates. Apologize for the technical difficulties here. Obviously, this is having a significant impact on our customers, and we have been doing everything we can to minimize those impacts, including pursuing federal and state assistance to keep our costs low. And just to give you some accomplishments in that front that we've had so far to date. Just this year, the Oregon legislature allocated $3 million of a grant to us to help pay for improvements to our 189th Avenue pump station project and a new pipeline project. We've also received $4 million federal grant money to offset the cost of the new treatment plant we're building as part of the Willamette Water Supply System. And a very important $50 million grant received for seismic improvements to our Taylor's Ferry Reservoir that's in our Metzger service area. Taken together, these projects and this funding will reduce the overall cost on our customers, so we're happy to be pursuing those. Over the past year, we've heard concerns from our customers, and for those of you who joined us last year, you'll recognize some of these concerns were the same ones that were raised then. So we've structured our presentation to address these concerns. Dave Kraska will be doing some, Justin Carlton will be doing some, but I hope in the end we'll be able to answer the questions that we've heard. First, how will our community benefit from the current investments in the Willamette? It's a very important part of our rate structures to pay for those investments, and we want to make that very clear. Second question is, are we managing costs responsibly? We want to address that, as well as are all customers, including corporations, paying their fair share of this cost. And the last item that we've heard is that some of our customers and some of your neighbors can't afford these investments. And we want to talk a little bit about what we're doing to help those customers. With that, I'm going to turn over to Dave Kraska, our Water Supply Program Director. Dave?
Paul and Dave, if you can hold up for 1 second, we're still having a few technical difficulties that I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I believe. Oh.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Dave took control, and I believe everybody can see the slide that says Dave Kraska PE.
I just took control, Frank.
Okay. Okay. It looks like we're okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone.
All right, so we're good to go?
Go for it.
Okay. All right, here we go. So introduction slide for me. I'm just going to go ahead and get into my presentation, assuming I can click on the right dot. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to give you an overview of the Willamette Water Supply Program that I'm responsible for running, have been in this role since 2015, so almost 10 years now. But this project goes back many years, even before when I'm about to present to you on this slide. But really, it started in earnest in 2013 when TVWD and Hillsborough independently evaluated their long-term water supply options. They considered the same options as shown on the graphic here on the right-hand side, starting with the 4 options that they considered for long-term water supply: a new groundwater supply to the north, continuing to purchase water from Portland to the east, going to the Mid-Willamette River connection to the south, or from the west, increasing storage and supply from Hag Lake. And ultimately, after considering technical input, public input, and evaluating all the other criteria that were in consideration, including environmental impacts and costs, the Mid-Willamette was selected. And compared to all of the options, the Mid-Willamette is lower in cost and therefore meant lower impact on rates, provided excellent water quality as proven through 2 decades of supply to cities of Wilsonville and Sherwood, that provides ownership of the supply to the Tualatin Valley Water District and its customers, provides reliability of supply given the seismic improvements that we're making, and it also generates fewer environmental impacts in completing the project. Now, with the selection made, my team was given a mission, which was, and is, to provide a cost-effective, reliable, and resilient water supply system by July 2026 that benefits the current and future generations of the communities we serve and supports a vibrant local economy. A lot of very important information in that mission statement that guides everything that we do in the program, including our end date of July 2026, which we are still on track to meet. Given that, here is an overall view of what the program entails, or what our overall system entails that we're completing through the program. Starting with the river intake, that is an existing intake, but we're improving its seismic resiliency and expanding it down in Wilsonville, constructing a new state-of-the-art water treatment plant in Sherwood, building more than 30 miles of large diameter transmission pipelines, and water storage tanks on top of Cooper Mountain. New seismic guidelines and standards are also very important because we want this to be a resilient supply that withstands the anticipated Cascadia subduction zone event. So our pipelines, water tanks, and treatment, state-of-the-art water treatment plant are all strengthened in key locations for exactly that purpose. We're also providing additional investment made at locations identified as higher risk, including the Willamette River riverbank. Economic considerations, it's a massive program with a lot of cost. We wanted to benefit the local economy as much as possible. And to date, 78% of the total spend on the program, more than $1 billion so far, has gone to local businesses. And what do we mean by local businesses? It's everything within 50 miles of all the program activities. Beyond that, we call regional. So everything else that's still within Oregon and Washington, about 5% is outside of the 50-mile radius, but still within Oregon and Washington. The remaining 17% is outside of those areas, but so far so good regarding our local contributions to the economy. Partnerships are very important, have been very important from day one on the program. They save money and reduce our construction impacts. For example, our Kinsman Road project was a partnership with the City of Wilsonville and Oregon Department of Transportation. Our pipeline, as you saw from the previous map, goes from south to north, and we looked in as many roadways as possible where we could construct our pipeline at the same time roadway improvements were being done. So in the City of Wilsonville, where they were completing their Kinsman Road project, we got our project done at the same time. So basically saved a lot of money and impacted the public only once. Similarly, we've done quite a few projects with Washington County. One, for example, here shown in the center, 124th Avenue Partner Project. It's about 3 miles of pipeline that we installed while Washington County was constructing 124th Avenue there in the Tualatin and Sherwood area. We also had to coordinate our project with development that was occurring in the area. We wanted to get our pipelines installed and buried before development occurred, such as in the South Hillsborough area shown here on the right. Regarding a program cost history, always very important to see how we're performing in terms of the promises we made in terms of the overall program cost. So I have for you a history of the cost estimates and our baseline budgets. And in 2016, when we first got started on the program and first started work on it, we did a preliminary design and a value engineering report to provide a best estimate possible in what this program was going to cost. And the estimate at that time, back in 2016, was $1.3 billion. Every year since then, we've updated what we call our baseline cost, which is the estimated cost for the whole entire program to complete in 2026. And so in this chart here, you see the years every year. In the next column is the baselines, the baseline 1.1, 2.1, and so on. The total budget, the baseline budget, our management reserve, which is an amount of money that we hold in our budget to address what some people call unknown unknowns. And then some notes in terms of what were the major differences that occurred from year to year. I won't go through all of these numbers, don't have time for that right now. It's really not important. But what you can see from 2016 to 2021, we stayed around $1.2 to $1.3 billion. And I just noticed a hand come up. And Frank, do you want to take questions during the presentation, or should I continue on and save questions for the end? Or
I would say let's continue on, and we will take all questions at the end.
Okay, very good. All right, I'll continue on, but appreciate that questions are coming. Looking forward to that. So in this chart, as I mentioned, we stayed from 2016 to 2021 around $1.2, $1.3 billion overall total cost for the program, or cost estimate for the program. And you can see it was between 21 and 22 that we had a significant jump from about $1.3 to $1.6 billion. And that was right when we bid all of our remaining large construction projects. And it was also right around we were subject to the cost impacts and inflation due to the COVID shutdowns of all manufacturing, frankly, worldwide. But I have a couple of slides that explain a little bit more of that in detail. So it says here recent construction bids brought the reality of the current inflationary conditions to light. Now, again, we were bidding all of our remaining major construction projects between 2021 and 2022. And a couple of our largest ones, a reservoir-related pipeline project and water treatment plant, are shown here, for example. So again, late 2021, we estimated the cost for a reservoir-related pipeline project at $117 million. And when we competitively bid that work and received bids for it, or the winning bid, the low bid for that work was $143 million. So you can see a significant increase on that one. Even more so was our water treatment plant project, where at the end of 2021, we estimated the cost of that one at $292 million. The competitively bid, low bid cost for that one came in at $427 million. So overall, all of the remaining work that we had to construct was $315 million more than we had anticipated, largely due to the inflationary impacts related to the COVID shutdowns. So our total program went from 1.3 billion to 1.6 billion. So at that point, it seemed worthwhile to check if we were still on the right path for a long-term water supply. We went back and revisited the other alternatives for long-term water supply to see if it would make sense at all to essentially switch horses at this time. And so in this chart here, you can see the three remaining alternatives that I presented to you earlier in this presentation. The northern groundwater supply, staying with City of Portland, or going to expanding Hag Lake supply. And you can see here in this chart the status of each of those since 2013, since the decision was made. Regarding the northern groundwater supply, no studies, planning, investigations, or investments have been made. So we really found it to be fatally flawed. The implementation of this alternative is significantly uncertain, which would mean a significant cost risk and certainly would not be complete in time by 2026. Regarding Portland, Portland is now implementing their corrosion control and their new water treatment plant, their filtration plant. Those costs were not even considered back in 2013. It would only make this project more expensive than what we're implementing. So significantly higher cost to the customers, a lower level of seismic resiliency for our customers. It would still not provide ownership of supply for the Tualatin Valley Water District, and certainly would not be complete by 2026. And finally, the Hag Lake Dam Raise project that was being considered back in 2013. Since that time, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has decided it will only improve dam safety. It will not increase capacity. So it's not going to provide the needed capacity that our area needs, and would also not be complete by 2026. So with this review, our leadership decided we're still on the right course of finishing the Willamette Water Supply Project, even at the higher cost. The fight to control costs is not over. There are 7 ways that we're still working to control costs, including more than $50 million in project costs as defined by our leadership, to make some costs where we could. For example, our initial program had envisioned building 2 reservoirs on the top of Cooper Mountain. We're just going to build one initially, and the second one later when demands require it. Maximizing competition wherever we can for any work that we have remaining to bid, or any services that we have remaining to acquire. And when we do acquire those services or bids, negotiate the best prices and quality for those. Making cost-effective engineering decisions. There's still quite a bit of engineering occurring even during construction. Proactively managing risks early to avoid them becoming reality. Partnering on projects wherever possible. And lastly, but perhaps even more important, is rigorously manage all aspects of the program to stay on schedule. One sure way to blow a budget is to lose control of your schedule, and we're doing everything in our power to avoid that and finish on time. Provide some construction highlights of the work that we've completed. We still have work occurring pretty much all over the county. The flags here show the 12 active construction projects, though a lot of our construction on many of these projects is nearly complete. For a lot of detail in this graphic, if you want to spend a little bit more time on it, I encourage you to go to our website, ourallowablewater.org, for more information there. But I'll start with our construction photos from the south at our river intake. So we replaced the screens that were in the river that were constructed back in 2002 when the Wilsonville Water Treatment Plant was first constructed. The screens there shown on the right-hand side are 150 million gallon a day screens to provide enough capacity for the future. And this is the gray structure there on the left-hand side of this photo is our raw water pump station. So the water flows through the screens that I showed you on the last photo, flows through a pipeline into the structure here through a raw water pump station. And what's going on in this photo right here is doing seismic improvements at the riverbank. Basically, we're strengthening the riverbank so that it will withstand the Cascadia subduction zone event. We only have a single intake to the Willamette River, so it was critical that we make it as seismically resilient as we could, and that work is now complete. Our new pumps on the raw water pump station require a lot of energy, and so on the upper side, in the same location down in Wilsonville, we have a new electrical building to provide power to those pumps. We're making good progress on building our water treatment plant in Sherwood. On the left-hand side of this photo, the road that you see there is Southwest 124th Avenue. This is an image looking aerial from our drone shot looking south. So basically, to the bottom of this photo or north is Tualatin and Sherwood Road. So it gives you an idea of where we're located, where treatment plant is being constructed. We constructed about a 2,000-foot long tunnel under the Tualatin River. This shows the casing for that tunnel. This shows the reservoir site in construction. Right now, if you were to drive by the site on Grabhorn Road, you would see our completed 15 million gallon storage tank, the one that we are constructing in this effort. And this is a view from the inside of that tank. 15 million gallon storage tank, about 35 feet tall, 300 feet in diameter, so quite a large structure. And again, all seismically resilient. We installed a lot of pipeline through rural areas. This is a photo of that. If you look in kind of the upper left-hand corner of this, you can still see that the site for our reservoirs that we're constructing. But then from there, you can see the pipeline that we're installing, our 66-inch diameter welded steel pipeline. And we're also installing our pipeline in urban areas as well, developed areas. So the photo there on the left is along Roy Rogers Road, and on the right is nighttime construction in Shoals Ferry Road. And that's it for my part of the presentation. I'll pass the mic over to Justin now. Justin?
Thank you, Dave. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for taking the opportunity to attend this session today. I know everybody's ideal lunch hour is probably not best spent listening to updates on water rates and about their water district, but appreciate that you invested the time today, and hopefully we can provide some information that you find useful and answer your questions. So I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at the district. In addition to leading the financial operations, my principal role is to balance the investments in infrastructure with the financial capacity of the district. But I want to continue a little bit on some of the themes that Dave talked about in terms of how the district is managing its expenses and trying to save the customers money. So managing operating expenses. So in our last biennial budget, so the district operates on a 2-year budget period, and the last one ended on June 30th, 2023. So we saved approximately $6.5 million over that 2-year period below what was initially budgeted. Dave also talked about some of the deferrals in capital projects. And so in addition to what is looked at on the Willamette water supply system, we've also delayed some projects internally here at the district to better align with cash flow. So Dave talked about some of the examples with some pipelines and the reservoir to better align with our cash flow. But internally, we've also looked at some projects that would better align in later periods of time so that we can try and keep rates as stable as possible. And then also we've partnered with other agencies to achieve economies of scale. So one of the examples of that is our relationship with Clean Water Services, which is the local sewer agency. So we do a joint billing with them. So we actually bill for the sewer bill. They're a separate agency with separate board of commissioners. They're actually Washington County commissioners. They're a county service district. But to save those costs, what we do is we have one billing system. We send out one bill, and so we're able to achieve some economies of scale through that. And then also some of the other opportunities. So we have changed the structure in how we are drawing on our WIFIA loan, which is a federal loan that we obtained early on, funding a little over half of our debt program. And so it was a low interest cost loan. And as interest rates have changed in the market, we've actually been able to change our strategy and earn money on that loan. And so in the last year alone, we've actually generated $12.8 million in interest earnings by changing that strategy on how we manage that loan. And then also we've received $22 million in federal and state grants, some of the ones that Paul talked about earlier in the presentation. So the major drivers for water rates are obviously the construction of the additional water supply is a very significant increase. It's a $1.6 billion program. TBDWD's share of that is roughly $900 million. And so that's the primary driver for what the rate increases are funding. But we also have our ongoing maintenance and operations for the water system. So we have a commitment to make sure that the water system is running efficiently and providing safe and reliable water 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And then also our purchased water costs are significant. So our purchased water costs are the number one cost for operations for the district. Right now, we currently purchase most of our water from the city of Portland. Our wholesale rate from the city of Portland in the last 2 years has gone up a little over 30%. And so one of the reasons we're investing in the Willamette is so that we can actually have more control over the cost structure of what our purchased water is going forward. I want to focus a little bit on the infrastructure investment. So you've heard Dave talk a lot about what the Willamette has been doing over the past few years, but looking kind of where we're at right now and over the next 10 years, so in the near term, you can see from this chart, we've got a blue section and a gray section. The green section is small enough that it doesn't really show up on the graph. So I want to emphasize kind of the WWSP and then the in-district capital improvements. So you can see here in 2025 that we have approximately $300 million of infrastructure investments this year. So this is the peak of the spending curve for the investment in the WWSS. And so it draws down, and the system will be online in 2026. And then we have some future improvements approximately 9-10 years out in time. Last year, we had a little over $214 million in infrastructure investments. So the district has completed its finance package for these investments. And as the capital costs decrease over the next couple of years and the system comes online, we'll then transition to paying the debt service on the $570 million that we've borrowed to invest in this infrastructure over the next 30 years. So this is really a generational investment that will last, well into the future. These are 100-year assets in some cases. And so this is the peak period of that investment in that infrastructure. But in the future, we'll see more regular investments in just the district infrastructure, and we won't have these significant spending peaks that we have right now as the Willamette comes to its conclusion. So some of the questions that Paul went through, one of them is are all customers, including corporations, paying their fair share? You can see from our pie chart here, this is just a breakdown of the different meter classes by customer. And so the majority of our customers are represented with a single family and multifamily customer class. So about 95% of our customers are what we consider a residential customer. And then the remaining 5% are made up of commercial, industrial, and then we have some light irrigation and fire lines. I want to point out the industrial. So we actually have a total of 26 meters that represent industrial customers. So not even registering in terms of a percentage. But looking at in terms of contributions on the revenue side of the picture, we have about 71% of the multifamily and single family residents paying for the amount of revenue that we bring in a year. Those 26 industrial customers represent almost 7% of the district's total revenue in the last fiscal year. So all the customers are paying for their own necessary costs associated with the system based on a cost of service approach. I do want to give an example of an industrial customer and what the rate impacts will look like. So this particular customer, we're seeing, for the amount of usage that they have here, their fixed charge is $606, and effective November 1st, it will go up to $712. The volume charge that they're experiencing at $243,000 would go up to $286,000 for a total monthly increase of about $43,000 starting in November. As I mentioned, our rates are based on a cost of service approach. So a lot of this is an industry standard used in the water utility industry. It's an approach that ensures customers pay in proportion to the cost that they impose on the system. So a lot of the system costs are based on the amount of demand that is necessary in the system. So customers that generate more demand have more costs associated with them because it costs more to provide the facilities and the infrastructure necessary to supply that demand. And so this approach avoids subsidies among classes and customers. And then we also ensure new customers pay their fair share through the use of what's called a system development charge. So when a new customer connects to the system, we assess a fee to that customer based on the estimated demand and the meter size. So that ensures that growth is, in a sense, paying for growth. One of the other questions we received is some of my neighbors can't afford these investments. And so what are you doing to help them? The district held a series of advisory workshops with the rate advisory committee that was made up of a diverse group of stakeholders representing the different customer classes within the district. The most recent rate advisory committee concluded in 2022, and one of the recommendations that came out of those meetings that we brought forward to our board was implementing a permanent customer assistance program. And so some of the questions that the board wanted the rate advisory committee to advise on is there a need for a more reliable and permanent customer assistance program in addition to the current emergency assistance program that the district offered? How should that program be funded? What the eligibility requirements would be, and how should that program be implemented? What the rate advisory committee unanimously recommended with this program was having a system based similar to the low-income home energy assistance program. So for folks that qualify for that, they would be able to qualify for this 20% discount. And so the 20% discount would be applied to the customer's overall bill, and it would be up to the board to adjust that in the future, but it gives them the opportunity to control what that would look like. And then it would be funded across all customer classes. So within each customer class, within each element of the bill, including the fixed and volume charges, these costs would be passed on to all the customers and then used to fund this program in the future. And then focusing on the adopted rate adjustment that will go into effect in November, you can see that this is broken up into the different meter sizes. So as I indicated, over 90% of our customers are a residential customers. So this 5/8 inch would apply to them. Please note that it's displayed here as a monthly amount. So most of our customers are billed on a bi-monthly basis. However, for comparative purposes, we do present the information on a monthly amount for this presentation. And for the block rates, so the district does use a block rate structure so that customers that use more water do pay a higher effective rate. You can see that the block 1 rate, which is currently $8.58 per unit. A unit is 100 cubic feet or 748 gallons. That will go up to $10.08 effective November 1st, 2024. Our block 2 rate is going up from $12.22 to $14.36. How the blocks are differentiated. So for the residential customers, for the single family residential customers, it's based on an allowance of 28 units every 2 months. So approximately 14 every month. For all other classes, it's based on 140% of their 12-month moving average. So if they exceed 140% of a 12-month moving average, they would pay at a block 2 rate for anything in addition to that. And that's consistent with those cost of service principles that we've applied using the industry standards. Provide some examples of how this would impact different customers at different volumes. So using an example of our typical bill, so 7 CCFs per month or 14 units per every 2 months. We can see the current monthly bill would be $85.99, and then effective November 1st, that would be $101.03 or increase of $15.04. So obviously every individual customer's usage is different, but looking at our bills, this is what we see as the most typical bill issued is for 14 units every 2 months. For an above average customer using 12 units a month or 24 units every 2 months, so this is about 9,000 gallons per month usage, we see an increase of $22.54 on a monthly basis. And then lastly, for a high use residential customer, so once again, we're still with a 5/8 inch meter. So this is a customer using 28 CCFs per month. The increase would be about $55.50 on a monthly basis. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Paul Matthews.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate the questions that are coming in through the chat, and we'll get to those in just a minute. But before I do, I want to acknowledge some of our Board of Commissioners who have joined us here. And our Board of Commissioners are the elected officials. They're volunteers. They're not paid to serve the district, but they are the folks that are called upon to make these hard decisions. And on board, we have our the Commissioner Fisher, who's serving as president of the board, and Commissioner Sanders, who is vice president of the board, and Commissioner Duggan, who is our board secretary. So appreciate you joining us at your lunchtime as well. So as we went through a series of questions, I hope that we were able to address those. The first, Dave Kraska talked about the community benefits from our current investment in the Willamette and how we went about selecting that Willamette. Both Dave and Justin talked about how we're managing cost. Dave talked about on the Willamette project, and Justin talked about on our operating expenses and other aspects of the district's operations. Justin also talked about our cost of service basis and how we make sure that our large and small customers are each paying in proportion to the cost of serving and paying their fair share. And he also talked about our customer assistance program. So we appreciate you joining us for this Talkin' Water. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Justin Dyke, and he'll lead us through the Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Paul. So we'll kick off the Q&A with an individual who had raised their hand during Dave Kraska's presentation. I appreciate that individual's patience, but if they'd like to raise their hand, we can get them off of the mute and they can ask their question directly if they so choose. Debbie, that looks like that's you. If you would like, you can remove the mute and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, question. Our bill is continually going up. This last bill, it was over $550. We do not live in our home full time. We are here only part of the time the water is off. We simply cannot afford these rates. So you've got thousands of new people moving into the area. You've got new corporations coming in. I just don't feel like it's right that people like us are getting a drastic increase in our water bill. It seems out of line to me.
Thank you for that comment, Debbie. I know one of the things, well, I'll let our CFO, Justin Carlton, speak to some of the rate and cost components, but as well, one of the things that you can always do for looking into some of the reasoning with the cost to your bill is to contact our customer service department. They do have an ability to look at some of the some bills on a year over year or billing cycle compared to the year prior billing cycle and help you with what components of the charges you're seeing relate to the TVWD drinking water charges, which of those charges relate to the clean water services, sewer, and surface water management fees, and as well if there's any consumption variables between those billing cycles that might help further explain the charges you're seeing or if there's anything else that needs to be addressed. But I'll also let Justin Carlton take a moment to speak to your comment as well.
Yeah, well, there's no consumption because we're not here and our sprinklers are off. So, and I've had my meter looked at to see if I have a leak, and we do not.
What about well, Debbie, I appreciate your question, and as far as it relates to the specific issues, if there was water being billed that was not used, then obviously our customer service department will be happy to assist with that. As far as the rate structures go, as I mentioned, the principles that we base our rates on are done on a cost of service analysis by customer class, so that individual customer groups aren't subsidizing any other individual customer group. And so, rates are set in accordance with that, and everybody does pay based on the same rate structure. And so corporations, industrial users, customers all have the same general rate structure. As far as the fixed fee goes for when you're not at the house, there is, obviously the cost of the infrastructure itself, the cost of doing the meter reading, the cost of providing the customer service functions, and those things. So those are elements of the fixed cost, as well as cost of fire suppression. So those are all elements of what goes into fixed cost. There is a snowbird option, and so I would recommend reaching out to our customer service department to see if that's something that would apply in your case.
Thanks, Justin. And we're going to jump back over to the chat. We've got some questions coming in. Justin, I think a few of these will be fit for you. The first one, at least is from Deanna, who asks, what is the wholesale rate that TVWD pays via the Portland Water Bureau?
The current wholesale rate from the Portland Water Bureau is $1.76 per unit.
And great. Deanna's second question is one that I will answer. It is the rate advisory committee meeting open to the public? Deanna, those rate advisory committee meetings, as Justin Carlton had said, were held in 2022. They are recorded and put on our YouTube channel. We're going to drop a link to that YouTube playlist in the chat here in a couple moments so you can see most of those meetings. Full transparency, though, one of them did have a recording issue. So I believe you'll see 4 of the 5, if I'm correct, on the YouTube channel. We did record them. So those meetings aren't ongoing anymore, but we can provide the video link for you. And then we have a question. Justin, you can answer this one from Leroy, who asks, will the rates be recalculated after the construction is completed?
Thank you for the question, Leroy. So as I mentioned, while the capital investment cycle is going down, the district will be having to pay debt service during that period. So we really needed to expand our financial capacity to first borrow the money, and now we actually have to repay that money for the bonds that have been issued for the investments in the infrastructure. So we do anticipate that any future rate increases would be closer in line with inflation now that we've completed our financing for this, but we don't anticipate rates actually going down once the construction activity is completed.
And our next question comes from Deanna, who asks, so how do our rates compare to the City of Hillsborough Water? From what I can see, they charge $3.55 per CCF. TVWD customers pay $8.58. Will go up to $10.08. While Portland Water Bureau customers pay $7.55 per CCF. Has anyone explored getting our water from the same source as the City of Hillsborough, which is the Tualatin River, allegedly? Justin, that might.
Okay.
Yep.
So TVWD actually is building the Willamette water supply system in partnership with the City of Hillsborough. We're also members of the Joint Water Commission, along with Hillsborough, the City of Beaverton, the City of Forest Grove. And so we actually are already partnerships in these organizations. Our water rate structures are going to differ based on the unique elements of the system and the unique differences between the customers. So the City of Hillsborough has some very large industrial users that are able to help really maintain costs, essentially subsidize costs for residential customers because it's a fixed cost type of industry. When you have single users using significant amounts of water, it's able to spread those costs across the base at a different level than we are experiencing with TVWD. TVWD's makeup shows primarily 90% residential customers. Our rates are structured in a little different manner than what they're experiencing in the City of Hillsborough.
And can I just add one more point to that, which is Hillsborough actually has a different rate structure. I'm not sure. I think somebody had quoted the rate at 304. I believe that is the increase in the typical bill for them. I saw that, I believe, in the chat somewhere. So they've introduced a lower tiered rate for the first 4 CCF, and they have progressive rates decline with greater consumption.
Thank you, Paul. One that we've hit lightly on, or at least slightly already, we'll go back to it, is from LH. Justin, this will be from you. Should we expect rates to go down since construction expenses will be off the books and our reliance on purchased water from Portland will go down?
Yeah, so as I indicated, even though the construction investment period will be ending, we still will have to pay for the debt service associated with the borrowings for the investments themselves. And so we had to get our rate structure in place to be able to actually go out and borrow the funds, and then now we'll be repaying those over the next 30 years. So we don't anticipate rates to go down. However, future rate increases will be much closer in line with what we anticipate to be inflationary adjustments. We've completed our financing for the WWSS, so we actually did a low interest for loan through the federal government about $388 million. And then we issued 2 series of bonds, one in 2023 and one in 2024, totaling another $180 million. So we're not anticipating any additional borrowings related to these investments. However, we now will be in the process of paying back the money.
And we have a similar question from Gina, though I think you've answered it here. The question is, years ago when the proposal to find our own water system and not rely on Portland, who was steadily increasing their rates, we knew that rates would go up to pay for the system, but at some point when the system is built and paid for, our rates decreased. So I believe you've answered that one just in the same effort as the prior customer's question. Debbie then has 2 questions, Justin. One is, can management costs be cut? And the second is, who's paying for Sherwood water?
So as it relates to management costs, I'm not sure what's meant specifically by management, but TVWD is always working on ways that we can strive to maximize our investments, whether it either is on the operating side or the capital side. So we do look at ways to gain economies of scale, share costs with partners. We look at our own cost-cutting measures within the district as we go into the budget process. And then as it relates to the Sherwood water question, the city of Sherwood receives water through, they do get water from the Willamette, although they're partners with the city of Wilsonville in a different, the existing treatment plant down on the Willamette River, and they are part of their own water utility. So I'm not sure I answered that question 100%, but if I missed what was asked, please let me know.
And I may want to just add a little bit to the management cost, because that's something that we worked very hard on. I think during Justin's presentation, he indicated that in the most recent biennium, actually, we were able to save $6.5 million out of our operating expense budget. And that is essentially us managing our cost. So we're doing everything we can. The costs here are largely driven by our need to finance the Willamette project. So from that perspective, it's very difficult to manage those debt service costs, but we have and we continue to work hard to manage all of our operating expenses, including our management cost.
Thank you, Paul. Our next question is, again, will be likely for Justin, but Paul, you might want to interject as well. It's from Deanna, who writes, can you give us an update on what financial assistance programs TVWD is planning to implement? In fact, I spoke to the Salvation Army as well, and they've alleged they tried to work with TVWD to provide financial assistance as well, but you don't have a program implemented.
Do you mind if I take that one, Justin, and kick it back to you?
Paul, please.
So I'm sorry that you got that information from the Salvation Army. The district does have an emergency assistance program that we've had actually for many years, where customers who are having difficulty paying their bill can call in. We also make payment arrangements for customers so they can pay over time. And Justin, I think I'll turn it over to you to talk about the customer assistance program that the Rate Advisory Committee recommended that's going to be put into effect shortly.
Thanks, Paul. So the district recently implemented a new customer information and billing system. And so as we've worked to stabilize the implementation there, we're now pivoting to implementing the customer assistance program. So there were some technical issues that needed to be addressed, as well as working with establishing relationships with an outside vendor to do the financial vetting process. So the district isn't properly equipped, doesn't have the staff, doesn't have the resources, and doesn't want to maintain the confidential information in terms of that vetting process. So we're outsourcing with Community Action Agency of Washington County to provide those services. And we're working with our software vendor to implement the technical process to actually make the billing adjustment. We're anticipating right now that that'll be implemented in line with when these next rate increases go into effect by November 1st.
And keeping on that same path, Justin, question from Deanna. Also, does TVWD provide funding to community action organization, hence why the award has been reduced so drastically?
So TVWD does work with community action. So as part of our program that's currently in place, which is the Emergency Assistance Program. We have a fund of proceeds available to assist customers on a one-time basis. And so if individuals reach out to Community Action Agency for a one-time adjustment, Community Action Agency works with the district to implement that. As far as the award, I'm not sure what that is in reference to.
And our next question is from Debbie, who writes, bottom line is higher costs need to be cut and not extended to the customer. It simply cannot be afforded. Do different zip codes pay different rates?
No, different zip codes do not pay different rates. So all the rate structure is consistent across all our customer classes.
And Deanna's written in, also per the website, you offer long-term payment arrangements, more time to pay. However, 3 months is insufficient compared to other utilities. Can this be extended to 6 months or 12 months? Justin, you might be able to answer that, some of that, but otherwise I can step in, and Paul as well.
Sure, I'll defer to you, Justin. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think that might be an opportunity for our website to have a little more accurate information presented. I have been in conversations with our customer service folks. I am aware that those long-term payment arrangements are able to be extended beyond 3 months. So I think that's probably an opportunity for us to do a better job communicating what those payment arrangements and flexibility in those plans looks like to our customers. And for that, I apologize. And that is an absolutely an opportunity for us to showcase that flexibility in a more public fashion. Paul, was there anything? I saw you turned your camera on. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that's right. We definitely go beyond 3 months. So if you're having challenges, please call in.
Yep, that's the most important part of that is what Paul said. If there is the desire to be on a payment arrangement of any kind, please contact our customer service team, 503-848-3000 or customer service at tvwd.org. And one of the representatives will be happy to talk to you about what those arrangements look like and what kind of extensions beyond the 3 month limit or 3 month that's on the website do exist. Next question is from Leroy, who writes in, will deferring capital projects result in increased costs for replacement of aging facilities down the road? Justin, that'll be returning to you.
So obviously there's an inflationary impact to making a decision to delay a project further in time. We balance those with the current needs of the investments we need to make. We look at alternatives in terms of is there a lower cost option on the replacement. So some of the projects that were actually currently underway came about because we had multiple projects that were being assessed, and we were able to condense those and find a solution to a problem by doing a single project instead of multiple projects. So there's a balancing act that takes place in terms of what the need is, what the costs are, what's available in terms of financial capacity at that time. So we try to balance those things. And our horizon on our financial forecast goes out about 30 years. So we look at these things over the long term, medium and short term, and we try to balance all that with what the highest priorities are.
And LH has written in directly to you, Justin, asks, can you speak more on how repaying the loan is so high that customers shouldn't expect a rate decrease once investment is completed? And continues with, the Willamette Water Supply Program was chosen to minimize reliance on purchasing Portland water, which is acknowledged as a current oversized expense.
Yes, thank you.
So I'll break the response up into the two parts here. As I mentioned, there's a financial capacity element associated with repaying the debt. So first we had to demonstrate the ability that we could borrow the $570 million and repay it back over time. And so now that we're going to be in a repayment phase, the rates that were used to generate cash flow in terms of showing financial capacity and then PAYGO, so investing in infrastructure on a cash basis, that's now going to be transitioned into paying for the debt service associated with the $570 million over the next 30 years. So in terms of rates coming off, the 30-year transition in our rates, looking at forward in terms of inflationary adjustments and investments in the infrastructure. So the rates won't go down per se, but the adjustments will definitely be more reflective of changes in the cost of service as opposed to these significant investments in capital. as far as it goes to purchasing water from Portland versus owning our own water supply. So yes, there is a transition that we're no longer a wholesale customer. We now have ownership stake in the water supply. However, there's still significant cost in operating that water supply system to generate the water for our customers. So we have significant pumping costs, treatment costs, system maintenance and facility operations costs. So while we do have more control over the cost in the long term, and we're not subject to the wholesale rates from the city of Portland, there's still obviously a cost associated with bringing the water into the system.
All right. And I believe our next question will be best handled by Paul. So Paul, Deanna has written in, also, have there been discussions with Clean Water Services, which you handle billing for, to provide financial assistance to their low-income customers too?
Certainly, we talked to Clean Water Services about matters of this nature, but it's important to know that they're governed by a separate board. The Clean Water Services is a county service district, and they have to make decisions countywide, including the various cities that they serve. So it's a little bit more complicated for them. We would like to do something in common with Clean Water Services, but we felt that the district needed to take action on its own to get at least that in place. So we don't control their decision in this matter, but we would certainly support them through our billing system if they were to implement a program of this nature. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. And then Justin, we've got one for you that you can reply to. It's from Debbie. Maybe big corporations should absorb more of the costs from residents. They can afford more than single family residents.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's kind of a standard approach to how water rates are applied to different customer classes, and it's all based on cost of service. So for different classes that have different demands on the system, they are paid in proportion to what those demands are. So in the example we showed with the industrial customers, having 26 total customers, not even registering a percentage of the total, they're paying significant costs. So they have larger fixed meter fees for the larger meters. They pay significant costs associated with the water demands on the system because the peak demand cost with sizing the facilities appropriately falls more on those who use more water. So in essence, for those that use more water, they are paying their fair share for the increased demand associated with that.
And thank you, Justin. So far, that is our last question. We will give it our.
So, Justin, I think there may be one thing that we didn't address, and I can't remember in the string of questions. There was a comment about growth and whether or not there were new customers to the district, and that is true. There are new customers in the district, and it's important to know that each new customer, we do have what's called a system development charge, which is designed so that new customers pay their share of the growth-related cost. But once we're done with the Willamette, this will be a water supply that serves all of our customers, not just the new customers. So I think it's a two-part question. One, new customers are paying their fair share through the system development charge, but that all of our customers are going to benefit from the Willamette. Our system development charges are not insignificant for new single-family residential customers. I don't have the number at the top of my head here, but it's more than $8,000 to connect to the system, and that pays for their proportionate share of the infrastructure that we already have made available for that new customer.
Thank you, Paul. And I do apologize if I had skipped over one from whoever had written that in. And we do have a couple of new comments coming in now. So let me catch up with the chat here. Justin, we'll go to you. LH writes in, can you speak on what it means that TVWD had to, quote, demonstrate that we could pay back the loan over 30 years? Apologize if I understood incorrectly. Were creditors looking to see that TVWD could charge higher rates now based on the future long-term financing structure?
That's an excellent question. So one of the metrics that we look at and what we have to demonstrate, and something we track in our financial plan, is our net leverage. So essentially, what is the amount of interest, the debt service that we can afford to pay based on the amount of water sales revenue that we bring in. And so in order to go out and obtain these borrowings or issue these bonds, we have to demonstrate to the market that we have sufficient revenues currently, and then also what our planned revenues are in the future to be able to sustain that. And so for the district, it was really based on what our adopted revenues were. So as I mentioned, we've completed our financing. We did our 2023 bonds or 2024 bonds. And what we were able to take to the market was the rate increases that were adopted by our Board of Commissioners during the last budget cycle. So TVWD has a practice of adopting 2 years of rate increases based on the budget process, the 2-year budget process. And so we were able to demonstrate that financial capacity by saying these are what we are anticipating for rates based on the rates that have been adopted by our Board of Commissioners and based on our projected revenues, and to be able to show sufficiency to be able to pay for those bond proceeds, for the debt service, excuse me.
Thanks, Justin. And Debbie has a hand raised. Debbie, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Can I talk?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Steve, Debbie's husband. And I've noticed all this infrastructure work being done east of Mountainside High School, thousands of houses going in, and also towards the Sherwood area, and big pipelines, major costs, major filtration plants. Why are we paying for that cost when we live in northern Beaverton and paid for these things in the past? Why are we paying for the future construction? I'm an ex-builder. I paid huge infrastructure costs in my building permits when I built homes in the city of Portland. Why hasn't most of this been absorbed by the building costs? We're not going to get any more water. We're going to get the same amount of water for our infrastructure that's already paid for. I don't quite understand the logic there. Thank you.
So Justin, may I address that? Steve, that's a great question. I think a couple things to keep in mind. That development that you're seeing actually is not an area served by the Tualatin Valley Water District. A lot of that development that you see down there is the city of Tigard, and the other part is part of the city of Beaverton. So we serve a portion of the city of Beaverton, but not all of it. And so the area that you're seeing that growth is outside of the Tualatin Valley Water District service area. The infrastructure that you are seeing installed, though, is passing through that area and coming up to the north to connect into both the city of Beaverton, Tualatin Valley Water District, and the city Hillsborough systems. So in a sense, that development is outside of the district, and we are not building infrastructure to serve those new customers.
Well, aren't those customers paying water bills?
They're paying water bills to, let's take, for example, those that are in Tigard. They're paying water bills to Tigard, and Tigard gets its water in a partnership with Lake Oswego out of the Clackamas River. So it's a different water system, and they are paying to a different water provider to cover their infrastructure costs.
Is your system around Mountain View High School?
No, we pass through Mountain View High School.
The Mountain View High School area?
That's correct.
Oh,
That's
okay.
correct.
All right. Why then do we need more water? If you're serving the same customers, why do you need more water?
Well, there will be some water for growth, but predominantly it's to replace the water supply that we had with the city of Portland. So going back to what Mr. Kraska talked about, it's to manage those costs over the long term, have a certainty of supply here in the Tualatin Valley, to have a seismically resilient system in preparation for any sort of outcome from a cascade of subduction zone earthquake. All those things led us to, including potential results of climate change, led us to the Mid-Willamette as our water source. And so this is to provide that water source to our customers. And we are doing a partnership with Beaverton and Hillsborough, but it's a partnership where each entity is covering its own cost. So I hope that's helpful.
A little bit. I'm a little bit confused though. I'm wondering why we need all this extra water if we don't have that many extra people. It sounds like you're increasing the amount of water, and now we're talking about something different.
Yeah, we are definitely, when you build a project like this, you want to take advantage of economies of scale. You don't want to do this, you want to permanently get enough water to build out. So there is additional water, but it's not the primary reason that we're doing the project. Other of our partners have different reasons for doing it, but ours was to have a permanent supply for the district as opposed to the supply that we have with the city of Portland.
Okay. So how many of these are there? Do you know how many percentage of new customers are coming online or that are helping absorb this cost? Because you make more money if you sell more water.
Yeah, no, that's and of course we're a nonprofit, so we're not trying to make money, we're trying to cover our cost. So the growth within the district over time, we're looking at the land and have a forecast of what build out will look like. So we actually have a forecast of growth within the district continuing to slow. And in fact, that's what we've seen over the past 5 years is the number of new connections to the system has declined over time, largely in keeping with our forecast. If there's another major area that's annexed into the district, if for example, Metro were to expand the urban growth boundary in area that we would serve, then we would have additional customers in those areas. But for right now, we don't see growth as being a significant increase in our revenue base or system development charges. I don't know if Justin, you want to add more to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Paul, in terms of the fact that we're replacing the Portland supply as opposed to being this project being driven for growth of customers. Sorry, go ahead.
Most of these costs that you spent, because you spent a lot of money already, have they been paid for by bonds we've already paid, already approved? And who approves these bonds? The water company, or does this taxpayer get to vote on it?
So let me break that up into a little different pieces. So the district has been saving to invest in this infrastructure for a significant period of time. So if you look back in time of when we made the analysis and these decisions, it was around 2013. And so there was some capital that was set aside to invest in this. We also, because we're trying to spread the costs over time to be able to manage the rate impacts, did borrow about $570 million. That $570 million was done in 3 tranches. The first was a $388 million loan, which is called the WIFIA program. It's run through the Environmental Protection Agency. And so that loan for $308 million was at 1.35%. So the majority of our borrowing was at a lower cost of interest than what the current market rates of interest are. So we were able to take advantage of that. We still needed some additional borrowings, and they were done in the form of what's called a revenue bond. So I think if people are very familiar with bonds in the form of like a levy. So schools want to rebuild a school, it goes out for a vote. And so those are general obligation. With a revenue bond, it does not require a vote. It's issued by the agency, and it's based on a commitment of pledged revenues. And so those revenue bonds were done in 2 series. We did an $82 million one in 2023 and a $100 million one in 2024. And that completes the financing that we need for this Willamette supply system infrastructure investment.
So we're having about an 18-19% rate increase now. Is there any, obviously no chance of that rate going down in the future?
as I've indicated, now that we've got the financial capacity, we're going to be needing to repay those bond proceeds over the next 30 years. But we don't anticipate future rate increases being at what we've seen in the last few years in terms of supporting the investment in the Willamette.
Okay. Well, I understand the cost goes up and you have to pay more money to support those costs. I'm just, and I know that we can't stop you from raising the rates. I just don't know that there's anything we can do to help save money other than shut off our water valves or not pay our taxes. We're kind of stuck here on fixed incomes, especially. It's kind of tough to pay an increase in a bond every year to build a new high school and a new water system, and higher costs of rebuilding the water lines, higher costs of building the storm system that we're performing here. I guess it's cost of inflation.
Your concerns are very understandable, and they're not landing on deaf ears. And this is the kind of things we think about as we go into the budget season. Really the big cost drivers, in terms of what the rate increases are funding is, we made it clear that it's really about the investment in this infrastructure, and we're almost to the tail end of that. The peak spending period is this current fiscal year ending June 30. And we've completed the necessary financing to support it. So we're in a good position going forward. It's been challenging for our customers to get to this point. So we appreciate you taking the time and making sure that you share your feelings with us, because we do consider that very important to know what our customers are experiencing.
I know that in Portland, I have some rentals there, and I have in the past before I went under building homes in 08, but I felt like the cost that the water bill was a tax. And I don't know about that is the true out here, but in Portland, I'm fairly certain that they raise the water bills for not just water purposes.
So maybe I can address that. That's actually an excellent point. So we're a special district. All we do is water. So the revenue that we bring in is spent entirely on investing in the water system and operating the water system. We don't have police or parks or libraries. We literally just do water. And so that's keeps us focused on that one issue. The other thing is we do not collect any property taxes. So in the past, some water utilities would rely on property taxes to subsidize the water rates. We don't have any property taxes at all coming in, and the money that we collect for the district is spent on the provision of water and the infrastructure to provide water. So appreciate your questions. Are there questions from others?
Yeah, Paul, there's a couple more in the chat here. Thanks for the reminder just to answer these last couple. Deanna asks if we could repeat one more time about the financial assistance TVWD is planning to provide for the customers. I think I heard 20% discount, correct? My apologies. I think that could be answered by Justin.
Yes, so for those that qualify, it would be a 20% reduction to the overall water portion of the bill. So as a reminder, we do joint billing for the clean water services on the sewer and surface water management fee, and so those fees would not apply. It would just be for the water portion. And you can reach out to our customer service department to work through the process in terms of qualification. The program's not fully online yet, but we do anticipate that being online by November 1st.
Thanks, Justin.
Can I add one more? I hate to keep interrupting, but the other thing, there was an earlier question about the federal or state poverty level. Somebody asked about that. So our low-income assistance program is going to be integrated with using the same criteria as the low-income home energy assistance program that the federal government funds. So we purposely chose that same level, which is 60% of the median household income. We did that based on the recommendation of the Rate Advisory Committee. And what that does is keeps the administration cost of the program low, because we'll work with Community Action, who already verifies that 60% of MHI, which in Oregon, that's above the federal poverty line. And that will allow customers to qualify without doing either additional work on their part or expensive work on our part. So that was very intentional to choose that threshold based on the recommendation from the Rate Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Paul. And Paul, we'll keep you on the hot seat probably for just another moment. Our last question here for today's Talkin' Water. I'll start off the answer, but the question is, where can I learn more about the partnerships you have with Beaverton and Hillsborough? The first part of that answer is going to be that the Willamette Water Supply Project does have a website. It's ourreliablewater.org. It talks a lot about some of the program background and history and what the partnerships entail that's going to bring this project into fruition in 2026. But Paul, I wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on those partnerships in any other way you'd like.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Appreciate it. But it's a difficult one to answer. We have a lot of partnerships with both of those agencies. So, for example, with the city of Beaverton, we're in partnership with them at the Joint Water Commission, at the Barney Reservoir Joint Operations Commission. We jointly own some infrastructure. We have an interties throughout our systems where we can back each other up. But just recently, we put in an intertie on Kimmer Road, which will protect both agencies. We wheel water for them, so we have infrastructure that can serve part of their service area that they don't have. And so we have a cooperative agreement with them on wheeling water. With Hillsborough, we have an urban service agreement with Hillsborough that delineates our area within the city that we serve. Partners on the Willamette Intake Facilities Commission, Willamette Water Supply System. We also have an agreement with them to wheel water into their Butternut Creek area until they have infrastructure in place, and Barney and JWC. So as agencies, we work incredibly close together. In the water business, there's large economies of scale, and so being able to work in partnership does a lot for our customers. So we look for opportunities to work with them, as well as mentioned Clean Water Services, and I think Dave Kraska talked about some of the road projects with the county. So we're always looking for opportunities to get more for our dollar by doing it in partnership with nearby water utilities as well as other agencies. I'm not sure that there's a place where we can go to just delineate all that. Maybe that's a challenge we can work on and put something on our website that talks about all the partnerships that we have. Okay, so can I just address John's second question there?
Yep, so go for it.
Yeah, so actually, this is a good news story. The one on Cooper Mountain, that is the intertie that I talked about that allows us to connect our two reservoirs together so they can operate and back each other up. There's a slight difference in elevation between those two reservoirs, so the physics of delivering water to the two service areas are somewhat different, and Beaverton is going to be serving the new growth area that is out in that area. So this will reduce our pumping. This will reduce our risk of our pumping systems. We need reliability and resiliency to the pumps, and that is an example of a partnership that we did. The total amount of storage that we need at the top of the hill didn't go down, but by being able to connect it together, we've reduced the need to have redundancy there as well as in our pumping infrastructure. So this would be a good example. It may look odd because we're in close proximity. The way the hills are made and elevations and the way gravity works, it puts us in close proximity, even if we are serving other areas. But by connecting those two systems together, it's really a win-win for all of us. That's a great question. I appreciate that.
And thanks for the answer, Paul. So with that, I believe that's our last question that we have between the Q&A, the chat, and the rest of the interactions for today. We got a couple thank yous, and we want to take one more opportunity to thank everybody for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedules, your lunchtime, your lunch breaks from your day to learn about the 2024 water rates and what everything that TVWD is doing with the finances from those rates to support our community with water service. We'll be doing a second version of this presentation, same exact content, just a different date and time for those folks who can make it. They'll be on October the 10th at 6 p.m. This presentation and that one as well will be recorded and put on YouTube for anyone who wasn't able to make it today, but who does want to listen in. So with that, thank everyone again for attending. And that's been this edition of Talking Water. We appreciate your time this afternoon.